Welcome back to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Time for us to take you through the pages of our national dailies. We call it Off the Press. And as usual, we have a legal practitioner, Tunde Kolawole, joining the conversation. Good morning. It's good to have you join us.
Good morning, my sister. How was the night?
Very well, thank you. And Happy New Year.
Same to you.
That's all right then. Let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper this morning. As always, we will be looking at the big stories on the Leadership newspaper. I start off with the bold caption. Ahead of election year, states prioritize capital projects in 2022 budget. And that's a bold caption. Experts foresee boom in economic activities, warn against white elephant projects, and hinge successful implementation on stable federal allocations and political will. That's quite interesting. Away from that, Sanwo-Olu pleas in standover Magodo Estate siege. Uzodinma fails to name sponsors of violence in Imo. And you also have gunmen killed 24 in fresh Kaduna attack. 44 Nigerian journalists killed in 2021, says NUJ. And federal government gets U.S. not to fight bandits with Super Tucano jets. Now, this is some of the headlines on the Leadership newspaper.
All right, to the Guardian newspapers. Big one there says, barely 1 year to go, Buhari appoints economic advisor. Zaka says appointment is vote of no confidence on NEC. Excuse me, and also Salami's economic thoughts are at variance with president's philosophy, says Adonri. France alerts the world of new COVID-19 variant, IHU. Still on The Guardian this morning, Olubadan in council decides on succession plan today. Undume seeks prosecution of terrorists and sponsors. Gunmen killed 9 and injure 5 in Kaduna. And in the southeast, Uzodinma backtracks on naming sponsors of terrorism. Those are the big stories on the Guardian newspapers.
Away from the Guardian newspaper, let's check out the Daily Independent. And the banner caption says, federal government's auto gas policy hits rocks, may threaten deregulation. Major shakeup in Nigerian Air Force. Wike accuses Ogonis of destroying themselves and blaming others. Buhari appoints Doyin Salami as Chief Economic Advisor. Why we're yet to declare bandits as terrorists, that's what the federal government is going to have to say. I mean, I'm sure that we had this argument some of the time where, someone, those guests who said, the federal government had declared. We know that the court had actually said that the federal government can go ahead, to declare. But this will continue to be a conversation up until we get to that point. Anyone expecting anything positive from Buhari this year is wasting his time. This is what Adebanjo is quoted to say. And just before we move away, oil price hits $80 per barrel as Nigeria's output surged to 1.7 million barrels. Now, this is actually, the highest, since November. Sanwo-Olu intervenes in Magodo land tussle. Others stand down. I mean, the Sanwo-Olu's case would constantly dominate, and we had that conversation just before this time. I have to pat to be Tambuwal's running mate in 2023. Mimiko is quoted, and that's the much we have here on the Daily Independent newspaper.
All right, now to the Punch newspapers. AMCON lists 7,912 names owing 4.4 trillion naira as deadline expires today. National Assembly has directed we publish debtors list, says the corporation. This is a final warning. Don't be taken by surprise, AMCON tells debtors. And also, automatically in 30 years' time, youths will carry government's mounting debt burden. And that's from the president of Carrington Fellowship. Muslim ticket unacceptable, says Khan. Ohaneze to lobby North and Southwest for all Igbo presidential race. Oshimbajo's presidential campaign billboard surfaces in Abuja. And also Magodo protests, Sanwo-Olu, police team leader, exchange words. Governor plans meeting. 4 inmates killed, warder injured in Oshun, attempted jailbreak. And Dana plane and a speeding car in near collision in Lagos Airport taxiway. I think these are the stories that we can share. Okay, there's a couple of others on the point this morning on the presidency. Tinubu Group boast of national spread, says ex-governor ahead of others. All right, Mr. Kolawole, good morning and thanks for joining us once again.
Yeah, good morning once again.
All right, I think we can start from, the one that has, been the most controversial in the last 24 hours, and that's the Lagos State Governor and his brief confrontation.
A very, very big tragedy, which in itself is caused by our airlines. Many people will not know that the Magodo issue has been going on for the past 35 or 36 years. Our airlines in Lagos State started sharing the lands among themselves, and then they converted it to residential estates. The civil servants in particular, when the lands were demarcated, some of them will take about 10 parcels, develop 2, and sell the remaining 8, make a huge profit from the land they had hitherto told the owners was going to be used for public purpose. And under the Nigerian law, under the Nigerian constitution, a governor using the Land Use Act as an instrument can confiscate or take any land from the owners, compensate them, and then decide to use it for public purpose. That was the pretext under which the Magodo land was taken by the government. And then when the people who own the land found that the land is not being used for public purpose, they went to court. And the matter traveled as far as the Supreme Court. And the people won at the Supreme Court. Because the land is already occupied, the Supreme Court ordered the Lagos State government to at least find not less than 594 parcels of land for the indigenous people of Magodo, so that their children and great-grandchildren can also have a place to build their future home and a land to call their own. But unfortunately, the Lagos State government has not been able to abide by this decision of the Supreme Court. I think what they've simply done is to go to Ikorodu and find land and give some parcels to some of the people in there. And then to worsen the situation. Yes, please.
Okay, so let's also look at, the crux of the matter. It was a face-off there, or do you think it would have been right for the police officer to just obey the governor and move away? I mean, these are some of the issues.
Under our law, the police, no matter how big they might be, they are still under, technically speaking, under the jurisdiction in Lagos on notice, without telling them, without informing them, and take whatever decisions or actions it decides to take, which I don't think is correct. It is the governor that you could say has that kind of a power. If the governor hadn't given a notice, that would detract from what he has gone to do. But it doesn't mean that the governor could not decide to meet the police and the residents association without giving them any long notice. It could be because of the emergency situation on ground in Magodo that the governor went there to douse the tension. You remember then during the NSAS process, he also went to Lekki to see whether he could quench the fire that was smoldering in there. The truth of the matter is that what is happening in Magodo is executive recklessness. Executive recklessness. If our airlines hadn't confiscated the land that didn't belong to them and that they didn't want to use for public purpose, there wouldn't have been crisis in Magodo today. If the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State, IG Odumusu, had shown respect for the people of Magodo, what we have on ground today in Magodo wouldn't be there. Sanwo-Olu himself wouldn't have to go there to go and start confronting the police. In an ideal manner, whatever orders and directives that Sanwo-Olu give to the police who are on ground in Magodo, the police are supposed to obey him. Recollect that under Fashola, when an army colonel was driving on the BRT lane and Fashola was passing by, Fashola immediately stood be taking more actions against him. That is the way it should be. Also remember not too long ago, a citizen slapped the French President Emmanuel Macron when he was on the campaign trail. His name wasn't on the list of people they were expecting in Magoda at that period, carrying out the instructions that were given to them. Is that the way to behave? It is that we have in this country today, whether it's the PSA, whether it's the police, whether it's the army and all that. And we have to stop that executive recklessness. So for me, Sanwo-Olu is on the right path and he's on a very firm ground to have gone to Magodo, not only to that estate, maybe a public estate, that all individuals, all Nigerians, all Lagosians can traverse. But if you're going to be entering that private estate and carrying out any police actions in there, you need a order of a court of competent jurisdiction to be able to do that. So let's call a spade a spade. There has been executive recklessness, irresponsibility on the part of the security people from the past 35 years. How we are going to resolve this conundrum is what I don't know.
Mr. Kolawole, in the interest of time, let's also move on so we can...
And
all efforts that we have made as a people to make sure that internally generated revenue, whether at the local government level, whether at the state level, whether at the federal level, they have never worked. We have always depended on oil from the Niger Delta to finance whatever programs, activities, and projects that we had envisaged or that we had wanted to construct in Nigeria, which ordinarily should not be. Where we are not depending on the rent coming from oil, we have been borrowing in a massive manner for the past 6 or 7 years to finance most of these projects. The tragedy of the whole thing, like I've always said, is that most of these projects were, at the end of the day, inflated. Another tragedy is that most of these projects are never geared towards alleviating the suffering of the ordinary people of Nigeria or giving them infrastructure that will give them value and service. They are mostly signature projects. Go and check. They want to build a flyover, which is very difficult for you to do the quantity survey and know how much it's going to cost. That is where they get huge cutback. They want to renovate stadium. They also want to build a ring road of maybe about 35 kilometers for billions of naira and all that. So when you find the federal government saying this kind of a thing, things that they have not been able to do for the past 6 or 7 years or thereabouts, how would they not be able to achieve it when we have entered an election year? The history of our country has shown that anytime we enter an election year, governance is always in abeyance. The people, the politicians, never pay attention again to governance. All that they are interested in, how they will win the next election, how they will raise the funds through corruption to finance the next election. So honestly speaking, I think this statement coming from government is just a way to kind of give the Nigerian people a kind of false hope that they will still be committed to governance before the next government comes into power. It has never happened in the history of our country. I'm not too sure.
All right, we seem to have lost...
over the president, the lifetime of the present administration. It has shown so much incompetence, corruption, recklessness, ineptitude, and impunity. That's nothing good. Just like the Afenifere leader has said, nothing good again should be expected from this government until they leave power in 2023.
Well, thinking about what to expect from the government now, it was, of course, news yesterday. It says on The Guardian this morning, barely 1 year to go, Buhari appoints economic advisor in the person of Doyin Salami. Mr. Kolawole, is that something that maybe should give hope to Nigeria's economy?
Honestly speaking, that is a very strange appointment to me. Like I just told you now, we are in an election year. Nobody is going to listen to any economic advisor. And even if you appoint an economic advisor, what is going to be happening to the National Economic Council, headed by the Vice President? Do you know that the Constitution specifically gave the Vice President the responsibility, the powers, and the wherewithal to manage the Nigerian economy, and then report to Mr. President and the National Economic Council? So what is going to happen to the constitutional responsibility that the Vice President has with regards to the economy? What about the other finance minister and some of these other people in the Economic Council that we have in there? What is going to happen to them? Is this Salami going to start to pretending over the activities without brushing, without classes, without misgiving? The answer is no. I have also tried to read the profile of Mr. Salami and his economic thought, his own blueprint as regards how Nigerian economy should be managed, appears to be invariant and manage a capitalist economy. How will his welfare programs dovetail or go into your own economic program as a government? It doesn't work that way. It would appear to me that this appointment is a fire brigade approach to douse whatever crisis that they might have in their hands. It could also be that the president has made this appointment in view of what most Nigerians have been saying, that what legacy will President Muhammadu Buhari be leaving behind when he leaves in 2023 with the tattered nature in which the economy has found itself under him, with the high level of insecurity, high level of unemployment, comatose industrialization. Honestly, for me, whether you are appointing 10 or 20 salamis to manage this economy for 2023, it's like putting a cart before the horse. And when you put a cart before the horse, you achieve zero results.
Okay, let's also look at the leadership. This might just sound like, some good news, especially as we fight against, insurgency. Federal government gets the United States nod to fight bandits with Super Tucano jets. Let's quickly share your thoughts on that. And just recently, we hear that 24 persons have been killed in Kaduna State.
It is ridiculous. For me, it is not a caring news. How will we as a nation buy an equipment and it is the seller that will be dictating to you how the equipment is used at the end of the day? What this tells us is that when Nigeria don't see it, I am not too sure any nation will enter into that kind of an agreement besides Nigeria, that you will buy a war equipment and the person that sells the equipment to you will not be the one calling the shots as regards how you use it and how you don't use it. The main reason why in the first instance Nigeria went to buy the Tucano attack plane was to be able to fight all manners of criminality, insurgency and banditry in the country. But now we are helpless. Our hands are tied. It is the Americans who sold the plane to us that now calls the shots. It is a very
I think it's mostly because...
very embarrassing one.
I may be wrong, but I think it's mostly because, before you get approval to buy certain types of weapons, there needs to be clarity that it will be used against insurgency and, insurgency alone. Because of the human rights concerns and civilian casualties that some of these weapons, could cause. I think that's mostly where the approval is coming from. And once again, I might be wrong. But no, it's not necessarily, so. The seller giving you a go-ahead, before you can use
brother,
it.
I don't think so. If it was going to be because of human rights violations, are we saying that bandits that have been declared as terrorists still belongs to the human rights community. Are you kind of equating them with the like of Showores, with the like of Adenya Jews, or some of these young boys and girls who organize the NSAS uprising? The answer is no. If America was selling this kind of aeroplane to you, and they were putting this kind of conditionalities into it, you could as well go to some other countries of the world. And but they are not the only one that sell attack helicopter, effective attack plane. France also sells very effective attack plane. Russia does. The truth of the matter is that America are really concerned about the so-called human rights that we all talk about all the time. In your paper today, it's reported in there that more than 44 journalists have been killed in the last 1 year in Nigeria. Go and investigate the circumstances in which those journalists were killed. Most of them were killed in the course of the performance of their duties. Why is America not raising his and cries about the death of those journalists? Nigeria has become a police state. The young people in the southeast are being shot at indiscriminately. They are being attacked with different weapons. Why is nobody talking about that? That it is only we are talking about the use of the Tucano. Is it only Tucano plane that can be used to kill people? Is it only Tucano plane that is being used to kill the use of the of the south of the southeast? Look, it all depends on negotiation. If we have negotiated very well, and we are not kind of enslaved or subordinate to the whims and caprices of the regime in Washington, that kind of a clause shouldn't have been in the agreement when we were buying the attack or the Tucano plane. It's not because of any human rights. They came into Nigeria here when one of their citizens was abducted from Niger Republic by bandits and brought to Nigeria. And then they were asking for ransom. They came with all armadas of attack of weapons. They came with a ship. It was on the land. They came with sophisticated attack jets. They came with all manners of weapons to rescue that person. Why weren't they talking about human rights when they were invading our territory to rescue their own citizens? So please, I don't subscribe to that argument.
All right, Mr. Kolawole, sadly, that's all the time that we have for this discussions this morning and, of course, our press review. Thank you very much for joining us. And, of course, we always enjoy listening to your perspectives on issues. We wish you a great day ahead.
You are highly appreciated, too.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Stay with us. We'll take a short break, and, of course, when we come back, we'll tell you what happened on this day in history. We're going to be talking about a boxer, Sonny Liston, that comes up next. And, of course, right after that, our first major conversation for today, moving to the southeast.
dust is coming.
Grandpa, what was Grandma like?
She always found ways to bring us all together.
Me had a voice of its own. So I stopped waiting and started to act. I stopped fearing and started to live. And when they thought I would fail, I stepped into my power.
Because my time is now.
I'm still Malta. Be your best.
Life can be fun and rewarding, but it also comes with some risk. As in business, you win some, you lose some. And that's why you need to be wise in the choices you make. It's like placing a bet. Again, you need to be wise. Wise in choosing an innovative platform with the highest market options and highest odds ever. That's why Winners Golden Bet, the leader in online, in-shop, virtual, and live sports betting, gives you enhanced platforms that offer you the best chances of winning. For betting on live soccer matches, live dog races, and virtual games. Winners Golden Bet is your best bet. Instant payment of winnings guaranteed. Play online or in any of our numerous shops nearest to you.
Hey guys, be wise. Play on Winners Golden Bet.
Winners Golden Bet, the wise choice.
Great to have you back on The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Our first major conversation for today goes to the Southeast, where there seems to be a blame game and back and forth, between the current Imo State governor and, of course, the former governor and the former state governor, Rochas Okorocha, are also exchanging blame as to the cause of security challenges currently, bedeviling Imo State. A few days ago, of course, the governor was quoted as saying that some of the suspects arrested said that they were sent by Rochas Okorocha. But of course, this morning in the news that we shared, the governor once again has said that failed to reveal those sponsors of terrorism in the state. We're speaking this morning with Barrister Justice Uhuegbu, who is a human rights lawyer. Thank you very much for joining us, and good morning.
Thank you. It is my pleasure once more. Happy New Year to everybody.
Same to you. Let's first of all, start with some clarity as to what exactly is going on in Imo State. We will eventually look at the Southeast, but Imo State seems to be the one making headlines with regards to security challenges in the last few weeks.
Yes, it's actually quite unfortunate that Imo State, that is known for peace, and hopefully you can make your inquiry. Imo State has been known for peace and tourism. People feel safe coming to Imo State any day, anytime, at any hour to stay and enjoy themselves. But unfortunately, everything went gaga. We don't actually know what is happening in this state. In as much as we know there's insecurity all over the country. But the question now is, why Imo State? There's no industries in Imo State. There's no major industries in Imo State. No major attraction in Imo State. And all the rest. So one will begin to wonder why all these, security, serious challenges in Imo State. It's so unfortunate, I have to tell you the truth. And I believe everybody in this country, especially from the Southeast, also buy that idea.
Well, are these still situations of the unknown gunmen, that we're talking about here? Or are these just, attacks here and there, that used to be in existence? Are we still, because, I'm sure you would also agree that the situation on the unknown gunmen that plagued the Southeast, in the last few months of 2021, we don't hear a lot of those stories anymore. So is this, the same unknown gunmen situation in Imo State? Or is there something more?
Well, the truth is that, this whole insecurity, actually, if you trust history, started about last year, especially within the period and after the time of the NSAS protests and all the rest. And Imo State also became worse after they always had about banditry. That one cannot identify these people. That is why it is called unknown government. So, but In the past, you begin to see that after the jailbreak, the security situation in Imo State worsened somehow. And it has continued that.
We struggling with feed from Barrister Justice Uhuebu. Once again, the conversation is, on what currently is going on in Imo State with regards to insecurity. Of course, reports of attacks here and there, and instead of, the proper security architecture, and of course the police clarifying, we're instead hearing from governors and ex-governors. Barrister Uhuebu, please go ahead. Barrister Uhuebu, can you hear us? For the insecurity, and I remember the report that said, that was from the governor of the state, Hope Uzodinma, saying that one of the suspects confessed, that he was sent by former Governor Rochas Okorocha. We'll get into that. Barrister Uhuebu, can you hear us now? Still having those struggles. Well, I was saying, one of the things, that I found peculiar was, and it's pretty much the same thing that we have, across Nigeria every now and then, that instead of proper security agencies and proper, authorities being able to carry out a full investigation, we instead hear, politicians blaming themselves. It's either the APC is blaming the PDP or the PDP is blaming the APC. And now, Hope Uzodinma is blaming Rochas Okorocha and saying that one of the suspects confessed. That he was sent by the former governor. And when I read that story initially, I was saying to myself that I don't need to hear from the governor of Imo State. I need to hear from, the commissioner of police in Imo State. I need to hear from people who are responsible, the investigating police officer on those cases, not the governor. The governor is not the not the IPO on any of those cases. And if people are arrested, then we shouldn't be playing politics with it. Because these persons who have been arrested have committed crimes against the state and against the people and the, of the state. And so it should be an investigation, a police investigation that should lead us somewhere to completely make Imo State peaceful, and the whole of the Southeast, should be at peace again. Instead of, politicians scoring points with these crimes.
Apparently, maybe that would be the reason why you have, the governor retracting, taking the step back and saying, we're going to allow, the security agency, of course, at this point, we're talking about the men of the Nigerian police, to go ahead and publish these names. But not to say that, because we constantly, and that has become, part of a cliche for us in the fight against insecurity. I mean, we constantly say that if you see something, say something. So I would also say that as much as, we have information, if the governor has information about persons who are committing this crime, the right thing to do would be to report to the police and let there be proper investigation done. But in all of this that is, going on, I mean, with the security situation that's going on in, the southeastern part of the country, and to be very precise, Imo State, I asked myself, and that's the question, because he is, in Imo State, and I'm hoping to, find out what the role of, the security, I mean, what the role of the police has been, how far the police have been, going about discharging their duties. How come we have not had, a lot of persons? Because it feels like that, like he had mentioned, Imo State is a very peaceful state prior to this time. It's a place you want to go to and have all of that peace. But I think we do have a guest back. Barrister Uhuebu, it's good to have you join us back.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe you just continue with, the question that my colleague had posed prior to this time.
Yes, like I was trying to explain, as far as we are concerned, or people like us are concerned, the government needs to do something, because the Constitution simply provides that the main essence of government is for the welfare and security of the people. Yes, you were saying something about the present governor saying that some people are behind insecurity in Imo State and they're going to mention names. Well, good. Fine, because if there's actually anybody or a group of people or persons that are behind governor or the state government has come up to say such a thing, then Nigerians are waiting patiently. Even people are waiting patiently to know these people so that their names will be mentioned with facts and figures, so that more people will actually know who is their enemy in this state.
But the question now is, do you think that, the security challenges that's going on in the country is being caused by some of these persons that have been mentioned? I mean, the back and forth with, the present governor and the former governor. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the truth is that insecurity all over the world, especially in Nigeria, is not made by the gods. They are all man-made. It's either failure from the government or, in participation or involvement of some individuals or group of people for personal interest or gain or whatever. So it cannot just come or throw from the moon. People must be involved. People must be responsible, and people must be held accountable. There's no two ways about it. Whether it's in Imo State, whether it's in Nigeria, or whether it's anywhere. So that is why we are waiting patiently to hear with facts and figures the people who are actually behind the insecurity situations in Imo State, so that we can know who is our enemy in the state. And also, if we can extend to the country, we also know who are our enemies in the country. There's no two ways about it.
All right. Well, kindly go on, with this, because, initially I was saying, that it seems like, the current governor and the former governor of the state are both playing politics with these security challenges, with one of them saying that the other one, is very likely responsible, and one of the suspects confessed that he was sent by the former governor of the state, and statements like those. Does it sound like it is simply politics that is being played here? Or do they genuinely believe that one of the, of the two, or maybe the former governor, truly is, creating chaos and insecurity in the state?
Well, the situation as it is now, from the media and what is going on, speculations and all the rest, the present government is accusing the former governor and and the former governor is accusing the present government and all that. But that is not the issue. The issue here is this: whether it is political, whether it is personal, whether it is group or whichever other name I can call, I don't know. The most important thing here is this: the government for now is in power, and they have the duties and obligations to protect lives and properties of the citizens. So they should do everything possible to make sure that the citizens of Imo State are protected in this country. I agree.
The need to have the security outfit called Ebibuagu, do you think that this would go a long way in, curbing the challenges that is faced with in the southeastern part of Nigeria? And I also like to find out from you, what has been the role, how effective has the Nigerian police in Imo State been?
Well, the truth is that constitutionally, the body saddled with the responsibility of protecting lives and properties of the citizens is the Nigerian police. Yes, the Rubaku can come in, every other security outfit can come in, vigilante groups can come in and all the way, because of the current situation we have in the country today, and especially in Imo State. That is not bad. But remember, there must be a holistic approach to all these things. There must be a cohesion, between them. There must be this integration between all the security aspects, so that the security apparatus working in the state will now work in tandem with the norms and values of security challenges in the country or in that state. So it's not a matter of we have a Bubago, we have this, and all the rest. The question you should be asking yourself now is this: what is the level or the extent of cooperation between the security agents and these vigilante aspects that have been set up in Imo State and all the rest? So I think that is where there is a disconnect. Because whether you like it or not, if these people, if the security aspects carry arms, and some other security outfits like the police, the military, and all the rest carry arms, how do you now identify each other? How do you now come to a cooperation to each other to begin to battle some of these things? Secondly, would they play by the rules? Who are the ones giving orders? Who are the commanders? Who are the foot soldiers and all the rest? So you begin to look at some of these things, and most importantly, the government also must be careful, because when you empower people, get away from the normal norms of recruitment of police officers in Nigeria. You now recruit everybody to the Nigerian police and give them arms. And that's one of the problems we're having in Nigeria today.
Well, Barrister, can you give us some clarity or exactly on what the nature of security challenges we're talking about here in Imo State? Are we still hearing of kidnappings, of assassinations, of people being killed or robbed, in their residence? What exactly are the most common security challenges?
It's only during political exercise that you see so many media artists coming out in Imo State for one thing or the other. But most of them don't report simplicity. What happened? Because I discovered there is not the Imo people.
There's a lot of calm and peace in Imo State. I mean, these are feelers that, one has been getting from the state. But moving away from that, I'd like to ask, because I'd asked prior to this time, what is the role, how effective would you say the police is or has been in curbing and in fighting all of this crime and criminality in Imo State? Do you think that they are overwhelmed?
No, you see, the truth is this. The police in Imo State, to the best of my knowledge, they have been trying in recent times. And remember that since the coming up of the NSCAS and the jailbreak in Imo State, there seems to be more like a discouragement from the police, especially when you talk about their welfare. Look at this December that just passed. When did the police officers all over Nigeria receive their salary and all the rest? Now, for police officers that are working in some departments like tactical teams that, are saddled with the responsibility of, facing this insecurity on daily basis, 24 hours a day of every day, do you give them any welfare package for all those things that they? And the answer is no. So as I speak to you today, they are trying, and we must encourage them by helping me.
All right. Can you also share a little bit about the political angles to it? I know you mentioned earlier that what's most important. Are there any political angles that need to also be addressed for peace to reign in Imo State?
Well, I look at it that this whole issue of political angle, political solution is neither here nor there. Because as far as I'm concerned, you have been a one-time governor and you're no longer a governor in the state. So I don't see the reason why there should be confusion or problem between the past governor and this governor or the present administration. Your time is up. There's no two ways about it. So you don't have any, even if you have any ambition, it will be in the near future. Begin to bridge your grassroots and nothing else. As far as I'm concerned, it's just only that in Nigeria, we play politics with everything. And remember that we say that when two elephants fight, it is the grasses that suffer. And that is why we are calling on the Imo State government to actually do the needful. Since they have said it, that they know some people that are behind the insecurity challenges in Nigeria. Imo people are waiting patiently to hear their names. Imo people want to know who is their enemy. There's no two ways about it. Let me say one thing, and let me answer this question. Your colleague was saying that the situation is not like it is before and all the rest. Yes, I agree with you. There have been a level of advancement and improvement. But as I speak to you today, once it is 6 to 7 p.m. in Imo State, everywhere is deserted. Unlike before, how Imo State used to be. Everybody, if you have been to Imo State before, Imo State is a city, especially Owerri, where you go and stay and for tourism, for enjoyment and all the rest. That's why I say
are on their feet and will be able to make sure Imo State is safe again. Like you also mentioned, the political angles, with regards to the former governor, his son-in-law and the current governor, some of all those things would also need to be brought to the table at some point so we can at least ensure that there is peace in Imo State and the rest of the Southeast. But thanks very much for your time, and we wish you a very interesting day ahead. All right. Seem to have lost him. We're going to move away from the discussions on Imo State and move to other topics of discussion this morning, and that is mostly with the fight against corruption. In the last few weeks, you must have followed the Auditor General's report and almost daily updates with regards to it. You know, it's either there is a 9 billion naira that has been misused by the National Assembly, or 3.22 billion naira that, you know, seems to have gone missing to pay to ghost contractors in the Nigerian police force. And also yesterday, 127 billion naira on
Merry Christmas! Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines side the Niger Delta with Mamode Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
Now 500 naira they collect them.
If you no talk, they go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. We head straight to our second conversation where we look at the fight against corruption. Now, if you follow very well, when President Muhammad Buhari came through in 2015, one of his campaign promises was the fight against corruption. And that has actually, to some people, recorded some kind of success, and to others it has been very biased. Now, just to fast forward to what's been happening, there's been several reports from the Auditor General of several funds that have been misused by different bodies and what have you. We're just going to be looking at the fight against corruption according to the President Muhammad Buhari's campaign promises. How far have we fared? And we do have gentlemen who will be joining the conversation this morning. Alfal, we have Awal, Raf and Sanjani who will be joining the conversation this morning. And we'll also have Eze as well, Oyepere. He's also a guest joining us via Zoom. Good morning, gentlemen. It's good to have you join us this morning.
Good morning.
All right, so let's start with Ibrahim Musa. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
All right, then. So there's been some kind of unfairness, not balance, the fight against corruption. But really, for the past years that we have right now, 6 and counting, How far would you describe the fight against corruption of President Buhari?
Well, I think the fight against corruption under this administration still remains more of a campaign issue, because the government actually did not prepare to really put in place system and processes and even strengthening the legal framework to fight corruption. It was a very juicy topic or issue to convince Nigerians that because Nigerians are really sick and tired of corruption, and they just capture that sentiment and moment to build on their campaign. So if you look at the government effort in terms of its fight against corruption, it didn't show that in-depth commitment to really fighting corruption, because so far legal system or existing legal system that's needed to really help to deepen the fight against corruption have not been really taught. We're still talking about the government that is fighting corruption without whistleblowing regime. We're still talking about a government that's supposed to be fighting corruption that still lapses are there in its operation in the fight against corruption. We struggle as civil society to convince the regime to have national strategic document on the fight against corruption. But that document, has remained more of like a result of the corruption, deepening corruption in the country. The insecurity in the country has rather become more vulnerable, because procurement of arms that are supposed to be bought never see the light of the day. Just recently, as part of this audit report, under the police, we were supposed to have equipment and facilities for the Nigerian police. 10 contractors were supposed to be given that contract. Only one person came up with 10 companies, same name, the same addresses, the same telephone number. Since 2019, nobody has brought in any items. Our framework is supposed to even be supported by the government to really fight corruption, because if you are talking about fighting corruption, the code of conduct must be strengthened. Right now, as I speak to you, they don't have even resources to even investigate claims of the public office, or who is supposed to file their assets declaration. So if you are talking about fight against corruption in Nigeria, you are going to look at various aspects, which when you look at it, it didn't really tally. Despite the commitment made by the President Buhari in 2016 in the anti-corruption conference in London, which Transparency International and British government organized, all those issues that the Nigerian government committed to, up to now, we have not seen the seriousness in which the government is even dealing with it. So in totality, when you look at the fight against corruption of this administration, I think, it remains at just efforts to recover assets that have been stolen by corrupt leaders of yesterday. And today looters are busy also struggling to loot the recovered asset. And that is why you do not even have a legal framework on how to manage the recovered asset. The asset will be recovered and it will be looted again. So the fight against corruption of this administration, it has remained, as far as I'm concerned, a campaign, issue. In terms of practicalizing it, we have not seen seriousness at what the government is doing. Previous administration have ensured that we have even the legal framework. Under this administration, even the Auditor General Office that is supposed to be radio and TV, it is about looting and corruption in public sector. So there's no way this government can claim access.
Mr. Rafsanjani, kindly hold on. Let's bring in Eze Onyekbere, who is also part of the conversation this morning. Mr. Onyekbere, I want us to focus on the Auditor General's angle, because in the last few days, like I mentioned earlier, The Auditor General's Office has put out its report for 2021 and even previous years, and has detailed billions and billions of naira that seem to have been, simply, misappropriated. From the police to the National Assembly to customs and immigration and the likes. But we currently are in a country that would hear about these funds being missing, misused, and whatnot, and nothing seems to happen. There is no further investigation by the corruption agencies or by the Nigerian government. We simply just move on like it's a part of our lives to hear that billions of naira have gone missing. So, Mr. Ekbere, what then is the use of the Auditor General's Office if the government doesn't bother taking action?
And thereafter, like a piece of paper, put it back into the shelves, lock up the shelves, and forget it. Now, coming strictly or straightforward to the Office of the Auditor General, it was after the Auditor General finishes his work, the PAC, Public Accounts Committee in the Senate and House of Reps, we are bound to take it up, look at the issues further, and ensure that public monies have been recovered. But now the 2019 report is telling us about what is going on, the fraud going on in the National Assembly. That raises a very big question. If the National Assembly that is supposed to be to exercise oversight and help in recovering looted funds is now deeply immersed in corruption, then there is a very huge challenge. If you recall, the Auditor General's Office is not just like any other anti-corruption agency. It's not politicized. It's a very professional office where what they simply do is to look at your records and accounts as presented by the office. They look at it vis-a-vis the financial regulations and the various laws and policies on financial prudence and anti-corruption. And once they find a gap, what they simply do is to send an audit query. And an audit query is simply to say, please explain what has happened. We think you have violated these policies or laws. And it is only when you fail to provide satisfactory explanation that the Auditor General now puts it in his final report, which is forwarded to the National Assembly. And the expectation is that all 2016 audit report, you find them repeated in 2017. You found them repeated in 2018, as well as in 2019. So the question is, what exactly is going on? The Auditor General is supposed to be a very big bulldog that can bite. But in Nigeria, we've rendered audit office toothless, that it can no longer, give sanctions. We have a situation where what we are even discussing are those who have managed to report. Over 260-something agencies, as reported in the last Auditor General's report, simply refuse to report. Because what we are discussing is that have failed to report in his report. So we are only discussing those who have reported. Those who didn't report, nothing is happening to them. The National Assembly under Saraki had amended the audit law, brought forward a new audit legislation which took cognizance of best practices in what. The more you empower that office, definitely the more likelihood that somebody in your office or you yourself will go to jail. So there has been a deliberate attempt to underfund the two constitutional anti-corruption agencies. These are mainly the Code of Conduct Bureau as well as the Auditor General's Office. So the President even refused to give assent to that bill as was sent to him by the 8th National Assembly. And the current National Assembly, from the last Auditor General's conference, the conference of the Auditor General for the Federation and that of the 36 state Auditor Generals, the President simply said that they are still considering an executive bill to send to the National Assembly. So even the private members' bill in the National Assembly is terminated. Nothing is being done to checkmate it. And beyond Auditor General, let me give you one more instance of the most grand corruption going on in Nigeria. In 2015, before the current administration came in, Nigeria was reported to be consuming about 35 million liters of P5 and 60 million liters of PMS.
Daily. Yes.
You consume PMS when there are more cars on the road. You consume it when there are more factories. You consume it when there are more people in jobs. So there is about 25 to 30 million liters of PMS upon which a name was a huge joke and scam.
All right.
Okay, so let's also bring in Ibrahim Musa now. The anti-corruption crusade of this administration is hinged on several policies: the whistleblowing policy and the biometric data verification and the Treasury account signing. I'd like you to, share your thoughts on this. How far do you think this has actually, helped in the fight against corruption?
Analysts, have come up with facts and figures that the single treasury account, it doesn't simply even work because many ministries and parastatals, they had found a better way to siphon public taxpayers' money. What they do, they create what they call project accounts, and this run into billions, and this project account is handled by individuals, and corruption and diversion of these funds continue unabated. So, yes, the government claim that they want to introduce whistleblowing policy. The whistleblowing policy, it has also more of like debt. It's a debt policy because it is not being practicalized. It has lost all the more sustainable legal framework because the policy that you have now is not being actually practiced and is not changed or that's even creating border. They are not even has asked them to resign. Nobody has asked them to explain what they have done, and yet they are serving under a government that is fighting corruption. Like I said, flagrant abuse of public procurement law is going on, in this country. In fact, some of the ministers who have been accused by this government, that is just to tell you how this government, is taking anti-corruption as a joke. You accuse some of the people that they are serving you here yesterday of corruption, and today they are made ministers. They are made to have high-profile position. So how will ever somebody take you serious that you have to fight corruption in Nigeria? They are only focusing on recovering assets stolen by the yesterday looters, and today looters are in charge of it. That is why today, up to now, nobody will tell you how much asset have been recovered domestically and internationally.
Okay,
and as a matter of fact,
we apologize because we honestly have just about a minute left on the conversation, and I want to bring in Mr. Onyekpere, for some balance before we say goodbyes this morning. So, Mr. Onyekpere, please share with us, because obviously this is a conversation that could go on for hours, just looking at the debt through to which it goes, and the massive corruption that we're talking about here. Nigeria still is going out to borrow money from international organizations and from other countries to fund projects. Mr. Onyekpere, can you in any way, just in a minute max, share with us?
We could possibly save more than $1 trillion if we simply declare the PMS we are consuming and focus the subsidy on it. Secondly, we could also gain about $2 trillion in new revenue if all ministries, departments, and agencies and parastatals are put on the actual TSA, not the kind of TSA my brother Rasanjani is talking about, so that all government revenues, like now there is a...
And, the reason for this conversation is, was, a lot of questions as to the relevance of the Auditor General's office and the Auditor General's report. And if a government doesn't take action after such damning reports are put out, then of what use really is that office? How sincere really is any government that says it is fighting corruption? Eze Onyekpere, thank you very much for your time this morning. I look forward to speaking with you again, and would like to have another conversation on this. And of course, Anwar Ibrahim Musa Rafsanjani, who's Executive Director of CISLAC and Head of Transparency International Nigeria. Thank you very much also for your time. All right. I think we've lost sound from there. Thank you also to our viewers this morning for joining us and for being a part of the conversation. If you would like to catch up, if you missed out on any of these discussions, you know where to find us. Simply
it's at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook and Instagram, and do not forget to subscribe YouTube channel. It's at PlusTvAfrica, PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle as well. I am Messi Boko. You'll have a fantastic day ahead.
And I am Osaogi Ogbawa. Good morning.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program,
The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power, and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays, 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
In raising our kids, parents should stop playing God.
The internet is actually using the people.
But when you are looking for money to help other people, then it becomes easy.
Don't rush into marriage. I always say this. You rush in, you rush out.
Family is the bedrock of every society and the essence of life.
On Today with John and Helen, we dig deep into family values in every sense of the word.
Join us every Saturday at 9:15 a.m. on Plus TV Africa, DSTV channel 408.
With you, we play a part in strengthening the values passed from generation to generation.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
He suffered equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect am.
If you no talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
Seize it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Hey, what's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshukeye.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely. Right, no question. He's a living legend.
Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is a level.
Thanks for joining us on News Brief. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. Governor Samuel Otom of Benue State has partially dissolved the State Executive Council with the sacking of about 8 commissioners. A statement by Secretary to the State Government, Professor Anthony Ijoho, on Tuesday in Makurdi indicated that 8 commissioners were, however, retained. According to the statement, those retained include the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Mr. Michael Gusa, Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Dr. Joseph Ngbe, Commissioner of Finance, Dr. Olofu, and Commissioner for Land Survey and Solid Minerals, Bernard Unenge, among others. The outgoing commissioners were advised to hand over to permanent secretaries in their ministries, while the governor expressed profound appreciation for their service to the state and wished them well in their future endeavors. And the Imo State government says some suspects have allegedly implicated former Governor Rochas Okorocha and Uche Nwosu as sponsors of bandits and kidnappers. Nwosu was Okorocha's deputy chief of staff and Action Alliance Imo State governorship candidate in 2019. He is also his son-in-law. This disclosure was contained in a statement issued on Tuesday by Ogwike Nwachukwu, the governor's chief press secretary. He alleged that the duo were funding violence in the state. And also 2 bandits who have been terrorizing residents of Igabi local government area of Kaduna State have been killed by security operatives deployed to the area. The killing of the men while they were retreating to the Mahul forest and recovered an AK-47 rifle from them. Still talking insecurity, over 50 kidnapped victims in the custody of a notorious bandit in Zamfara State, Bello Turji, have regained their freedom. Co-chairman of the State Committee on Finding Lasting Solutions to Banditry, Dr. Abdullahi Shinkafi, confirmed the development. Dr. Shinkafi said the victims were released unconditionally due to military airstrikes on bandits' camps in Zamfara and Sokoto Forest. According to reports, 2 bandits died from the onslaught, while others sustained severe injuries. The police has said arrangements are being made to evacuate all freed victims to the state capital, Gusau, for profiling and medical treatment before they are released to their families.
Police operatives, in collaboration with genuine repentant bandits and vigilante groups, swung into action and rescued the 68 victims from the forest. The victims were in captivity for over 3 months and include 33 male adults, 7 male children, 3 female children, and 25 women, including pregnant and nursing mothers, respectively. The victims hailed from Magaria, Maradun, Gusau of Zamfara State, and Sabon Birni local government area of Sokoto State. In another development, we have rescued of 29 kidnapped victims from Saife local government area. The victims were abducted for over 60 days from 3 villages, namely Adarawa, Ghana, and Bayawuri in Rigia district of Gusau local government area. They include 25 females, including pregnant and nursing mothers, and 4 male children.
And abductors of the wife and 2 daughters of a lecturer with the Federal College of Education Technical, Gusau in Zamfara State, Abdullah Mount, was outrageous. Now in Lagos, the state governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has waded into the lingering land dispute in Magodo Phase 2 estate. The governor visited the estate on Tuesday and invited all parties involved for a meeting in his office on Wednesday. Earlier in the day, Magodo residents had staged a protest over the presence of policemen in the estate. Court bailiffs had also sealed some property in the estate in the enforcement of a Supreme Court judgment.
A very difficult one to start the new year like this. And it's because of the importance that we see to all of the misinformation and lack of proper information that I had to take up this assignment myself. When the first attempt, as in coming to the resident association, coming to the estate happened about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, before the new year, I indeed intervened. And if you remember very well, the action was immediately, halted, and there were no incidents again. And throughout the festive period, we had started communication.
Still in the news, the Osun State government ushered in its workers to office after a Yuletide celebration with prayers. It has also approved 250 million naira for car loans and 10,000 hectares of land for mass housing for the civil servants. Others who have distinguished themselves in various capacities in the preceding year were also presented with awards, which include cars, home appliances, and others. The state governor, Boyega Oyetola, presented the approval of 250 million naira and 10,000 hectares of land for cars and housing scheme to the head of service. This was the government secretariat during an interreligious prayer. It was organized to commit the new year into the hands of God and welcome the public workers into the state secretariat.
Motivating you is beyond a clever political point. It's a sacred duty we owe you and our God, whose injunction in the Holy Book is that workers are deserving of reaping the good for which they have ardently labored. We shall continue to sustain this injunction without fail. I must equally use this opportunity to assure all our retirees that we are fully committed to you. Not only will you continue to pay the pensions, we shall also redouble our efforts in meeting up with obligations owed by previous administrations. As we begin the journey of a new year, which in many ways is another defining year of our state, I urge you to commit to doing better, improve our personal and collective productivity, dedicate ourselves to the Omoluabi ethos that define us.
To our world, as people God created in His own image.
I want to advise my co-workers in the state of Osun that their dedication to service won't go unrewarded. So they should continue to put in their best in the discharge of their duties. 101% dedication to government in the state of Osun.
Part of the reasons why Lagos residents do not consider the use of water as their means of transportation is lack of swimming skills and a phobia for water. Head of Operations at the Lagos State Waterways Authority, Ibrahim Famuyiwa, believes these factors are negatively impacting the patronage. He assured that despite people's fears and reservations, ferry remains the safest mode of transportation.
The city of Lagos has navigable inland waterways, which, if fully harnessed, would help minimize road traffic congestion, pollution, and provide low cost of long-distance travel within the city. Here at the Five Carriage Terminal, the head of Operations Lagos State Waterways Authority, Ibrahim Famuyiwa, spoke on safety measures put in place to avoid stories that touch.
We don't really have any high turbulence that might, tip a boat over, in terms of safety. And the second thing is about the tides. So in and around Lagos State, the inland waterways, the range of the tides fall around plus or minus 1 meter. But to be on the safer side, the Lagos State government, under the leadership of Mr. Governor, Mr. Olushola Sonwolu, has done a lot in channelizing the priority routes.
Passengers share their experiences using the ferry.
The only reason why I choose water transport is very fast. Though at times the gallop is too much on the, maybe it's because of the wave.
It's a very sweet experience, and it's the fastest means of transportation, and it's safe. You have fresh breeze, not like the downfall. You have to start, please shift the heat and everything.
I'm going to Satellite Town now, and I'm telling you now, before 12, I'll be there. But if you're going by road, you might be there till like 2 o'clock. You've not even gotten to Mile 2. So I think water transport is one of the safest and easiest means of transport.
For some time, I've been missing appointments. I've not been able to meet up my classes as a swimming instructor. But ever since they introduced it and they make it very, very, very liable for us, it's good.
Famuyuwa rated the use of water as mode of transportation. He reckons it's still in a developing stage as lots of people are dealing with water phobia.
Inland waterways is safe. Statistically, it has a low accident data compared to the other modes. Unfortunately, Lagosians do not have the culture of swimming, so water is still kind of like a phobia, So I think it will be good for the entire public, Lagosians, to embrace the idea of swimming. It will help them, overcome the phobia.
The improvement of water transport in Lagos has the potential to help address the serious road congestion and its associated problems such as extended travel time, loss of man-hour, and negative effects on the environment and human health. Jacinta Obiuku for Plus TV Africa.
The River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, has alleged that Ogoni leaders are the problem of Ogoni land. The governor accused some Ogoni people of selling themselves out, as adding that they have turned the Ogoni struggle into a money-making avenue. He was speaking at the 30th Ogoni Day celebration in Bori, the Kana local government area of River State, on Tuesday, by some pupils in public, primary and secondary schools across the state. These activities led to abrupt closure of some schools in the third term of last year, as the order led to the postponement of schools resumption in the state. Commissioner of Education, Science and Technology, Professor Abayomi Arigbabu, attributed juvenile delinquencies to poor parenting and some environmental factors, including social media and peer group pressure.
It's important to use this opportunity to mention the fact that some of the behavior, some of the issues we have in our schools will actually be traced to a number of things. Part of it is parenting. Poor parenting. Most parents have actually abdicated their responsibilities and they feel that the school should just take over and do it. Parents have to make copies of the forms and then fill the forms in the presence of the principals, that's designated maybe teachers, that is the class teacher or vice principal. That's what we said. So they will have to fill it in the presence of the school designated person, so that we don't have a situation whereby somebody will just sign something from somewhere, just come and dump it in the school. So the answer is to see the parents physically and see that it is the biological parent that is there to sign that particular form, and then the student, the learner will also sign. And then at that point, the school will also puts the stamp after the principal and the vice principal will have signed.
Now to news in other parts of Africa. 4 people were arrested over Monday's attack in Lamu County, which saw 6 people killed and houses ravaged by fire, police said on Tuesday. In the attack, which took place between Sunday night and Monday morning, 1 man was beheaded. They looted his house and shot dead another man whose body was found on the side of the road. Subsequently, the bodies of 4 other men were found burnt with their hands tied and could not be identified. Houses were burnt and shell cases found at the scene. Moving outside Africa now, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Tuesday said England could withstand a surge in COVID-19 infections without shutting down the economy, as Britain reported another record daily high in cases fueled by the Omicron variant. Johnson has resisted imposing stringent lockdown measures in England, betting that a vaccine booster drive and caution among the population would be enough to constrain the latest wave. The United Kingdom reported 218,724 new cases on Tuesday, a new record for the number of cases reported on a single day, although a figure that was also skewed by reporting lags over the holidays.
together with the Plan B measures that we introduced before Christmas, we have a chance to ride out this Omicron wave without shutting down our country once again. We can keep our schools and our businesses open, and we can find a way to live with this virus. But the weeks ahead are going to be challenging, both here in the UK and across the world. There is no escaping the fact that some services will be disrupted by staff absences.
Now in North Korea, it says the country fired a suspected ballistic missile off its east coast on Wednesday, underscoring leader Kim Jong-un's New Year vow to bolster the military to counter an unstable international situation. Japan's Coast Guard, which first reported the launch, said it could be a ballistic missile, but did not provide further details. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida told reporters that since last year, North Korea had repeatedly launched missiles, which was very regrettable. The country has continued test firing new short-range ballistic missiles, including one launched from a submarine in October. And to business news, the Minister of Power, Engineer Abubakar Liu, has assured that efforts were on to increase power generation from 7,000 megawatts then to 11,000 megawatts before finally reaching 25,000 megawatts in a few years' time. Liu said the Buhari administration was worried about power generation hovering around 5,000 megawatts. According to him, the 215 megawatts Kudenda power station in Chikun local government area of Kaduna State, which has reached 80% completion, will be completed soon. He was on an inspection tour of the facility in the company of the Kaduna State Governor Nasser El-Rufai. The minister said the major challenge faced in supplying electricity in Nigeria is the poor transmission of power generated, adding that the government is doing everything possible to harvest the generated power, transmit them, and generally improve electricity supply across the country. And also in the news, a passenger on an Amtrak train headed for New York City was trapped on the train in Core Base outside of Washington, D.C., as they waited for fallen trees and branches to be cleared from the track. Massive tree branches laden with snow could be heard slamming against the train and are believed to have triggered the train's emergency brake and knocked out the power on board.
It was just a very weird feeling it was also terrifying being stuck in pitch black darkness. We didn't know when we were going to move or where we really were, and just the feeling of not being able to get off at any point was very terrifying. And then the knowledge that there was a bunch of debris ahead of us, that was a little scary.
To entertainment news now, Nigerian singer Fireboy DML debuted in the top 30 of the official UK Top 40s chart with a remix of his smash hit single, Peru, featuring Ed Sheeran. The record became Nigeria's first song to record 1 million views on its video from Nigeria on YouTube. The record has now debuted at number 52 on the US rhythmic radio charts. This comes after a whirlwind 6 months for Fireboy, who has already released 2 albums in his career, Laughter, Tears and Goosebumps and Apollo. He's set to release his 3rd album later in 2022. And in sports now, after overcoming fears of postponement because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Africa Cup of Nations now faces its next big worry, security. Host nation Cameroon will ceremonially launch the month-long tournament on Sunday when they face Burkina Faso. But authorities are struggling with separatist gunmen in the west and jihadist raiders in the north, and some fear militants will seize the country's turn in the sporting spotlight to launch attacks. Security forces in the west are on high alert after armed groups sent threatening messages to teams in Group F, gathering Tunisia, Mali, Mauritania and Gambia. Also in sports, Novak Djokovic did not receive any special treatment in getting an exemption from COVID-19 vaccination requirements to play at the Australian Open later this month. Tennis Australia and the Victorian state government stated this on Wednesday. The world number 1 announced on Tuesday he received an exemption to play in the Grand Slam tournament in Melbourne. Officials said he was one of a handful of successful applicants among 26 people who sought exemptions.
The news overnight has been fairly significant. Obviously, the announcement by Novak that he has been granted a medical exemption, and that exemption affords him the opportunity to come into Australia, come into Victoria, and compete at the Australian Open. So he's currently on a flight on his way here and gets here sometime today.
I want to recognise and acknowledge that this outcome is something that many in the Victorian community will find frustrating and upsetting. But I want to make absolutely clear that, as has been the case the whole time, no one is or will be receiving special treatment because of who they are or what they have achieved professionally.
So I think it'll certainly be helpful if Novak was to explain the conditions which he's sought an exemption and been granted an exemption. But ultimately, it's up to him, as both Dr. Broderick and Joel have explained.
And that's a news brief. For more stories, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osaugie Ogbonwa. Thanks for watching.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
When you actually buy your block around 300 naira per block, if you are dealing with an affordable housing company, your block cost might come up to about 220, 250 because they are producing themselves. We try to eliminate third party as much as possible. If your land is triangular, you are going to waste a lot of money in construction.
Are you serious?
If your land is very irregular, up here, bent here, come out here, it's going to affect your design. The more edges you have, the more costly it becomes for you. So a rectangular land is actually the best to buy.
Space and Style, 6:30 p.m. on Saturdays and 5:30 p.m. on Wednesdays.